now have another very special treat for you that I know you've all been waiting for. The next person who's coming to speak to you this afternoon is someone who I have been following in the Financial Post for quite some time. She has done excellent, outstanding research on money and where the money comes from to support protesters. She's done excellent work on where the money comes from for other major issues that we have in British Columbia, like farmed salmon. I am very proud that she has come out and agreed to speak to us today. I'd like to introduce you to Vivian Krause.
Yeah, Vivian! Thank you, Vivian! Thank you!
Hey. Wow, it is so awesome to see everybody. I wish you could all see how good you look. This is so cool. I'm so excited. You know, I've been following this money on the anti-pipeline activism now for 8 years, and I wish I'd been wrong. I hoped we would never get to this day, but here we are. So we need to know who we are, what we stand for, and what we're going to do. You know, on the other side of town today, there's another rally. There's 5,000 people over there. We're much smaller. We have a much smaller budget, but we have a much bigger idea.
Yeah!
Our idea is that we're going to do the best we can with our natural resources. Yeah. We're going to be the best country that we can possibly be, and we are going to break the U.S. monopoly on our oil.
Yeah! Let's get louder!
Yes! That's what this is all about, folks. This is about the U.S. monopoly on our oil. When I started doing this research, I was worried because I saw that the same thing that had happened to the farmed salmon, which is British Columbia's most important agricultural export, well, except for the other one, but farmed salmon is an important agricultural export. And what I saw was that the same groups that were shutting down that industry were turning their sights on Alberta oil, and I thought, man, this is not good. This is really going to be bad if we don't wake up and smell the competition. So I started following the money. But at the time, we really didn't know what the campaign was all about. I stumbled across it by accident because in the tax returns of these foundations whose money I've been following, there were just these 3 little words, tar sands campaign. We didn't really know what it was. Was it against Northern Gateway? Was it against Keystone? We really didn't know. But 8 years later, we know. Now we know. Everything. Because the guy who has been coordinating this campaign for 10 years already, he said that from the very beginning, the campaign strategy was to landlock tar sands crude, landlock crude oil, to keep it out of international markets where it could get a high price per barrel.
Yep. That sucks for us.
That sounds pretty clear to me.
Right.
You know, the people that are at the other rally today, they are just as Canadian as you and me. Nobody here is no less Canadian than anybody else. But the money, the big money that is behind that rally, from the Tides Foundation alone, more than 400 checks and wire payments totaling $40 million. Just imagine how much we could have done with that, right?
Yep.
That big money is not Canadian, and that's the difference. Decisions about how we should manage our natural resources are being made behind closed doors and not in our country, in another country. And I shouldn't have to go into U.S. tax returns to find out who's funding who in my country. Who agrees?
I totally do!
Great.
And for contribution.
Thank you everybody for coming today. Thank you especially to the First Nations people who are here. Thank you for sharing your land with us. You know, when our grandparents and great-great-grandparents got here, First Nations people helped us get our exports to overseas markets.
Thank you!
Thank you. We couldn't have done it without you then, and we can't do it without you now.
No way!
Tens of millions of dollars, in fact, more than $100 million has gone to First Nations who are opposed to this pipeline. And how much of the First Nations who are in favor of it got? I don't know of any money, really. Nothing to speak of. We have First Nations here, people here from Fort Nelson that came all this way just to be at this
rally. Thank you!
I met Cheryl just before and a couple other people. So thank you especially to the First Nations people here. And lastly, let's remember where we are. Where are we? We're here at Jack Pool Plaza. You know who Jack Pool was, right? Jack Poole, he was the chairman of the Olympics. He was the guy who had a big idea, and he wasn't afraid of all the people that said, no, you can't do this. In fact, there was even a referendum. Can you believe it? A referendum over whether we should have had the Winter Olympics in 2010. The man who was the chairman of that project, he was Jack Poole, and he'd be so proud of us today, I'm sure he would. So thank you, everybody, for coming onwards. Let's get this pipeline built.
Thank you, Vivian.
Thank you, Vivian.